2006, in the fall, we'll be holding 4 days of public hearings in Washington on a host of issues relating to protecting consumers in the next decade, and spyware will certainly be chief among those issues. We think it's especially important for us in terms of the FTC's mission to be watching the adware space. A lot of the practices that we're hearing about here are criminal. You're right, Dan. And the Federal Trade Commission is not a criminal enforcement agency. We don't have that authority. The Department of Justice is the other key part of the enforcement regime here. Keystroke loggers, ID theft, all of the stuff, or most of the stuff that Ari displayed on his slide at the outset, those practices are covered by criminal statutes, and those are enforced by the Department of Justice. The FTC's main law enforcement focus is on unfair and deceptive trade practices. That's what the law that set us up tells us to focus on and gives us the authority to go after. In that, using that authority, we've brought 6 cases to date against spyware purveyors. Those cases have charged those purveyors with deceptive practices for product claims that they've made, for example, about the existence of spyware on your computer, or about the ability of a product that's being sold to detect spyware. Deceptive practices for offering free shareware or freeware without disclosing that it comes bundled with spyware. False removal claims, those are the kinds of practices that we've gone after using our authority to challenge deceptive practices. We've also alleged unfair trade practices for drive-by and other kinds of download practices where there is significant harm. That's what the law requires that we be able to prove. We have to prove harm or the risk of harm that's unavoidable and that isn't outweighed by countervailing economic benefits. That's the legal standard. So we've gone after downloads that hijack browsers, that materially alter the operation of the computer, where the software can't readily be uninstalled, where pop-ups are so severe and constant that they really cripple the use of the computer. Those are the 6 public cases. We have other cases in the pipeline, some that are about to be introduced or announced very shortly. We also have a settlement coming that will be made public when the Commission is finished reviewing it. But for example, in that case, the defendants will have to pay back all of the money that they made off of their activities, and will also be operating with a very large suspended judgment over their heads if they've lied about anything or violate the order in the future. So, you know, I think that that's a significant remedy in terms of the remedies that are available to us under the law. Now, technological solutions. I think what we're hearing from this panel and what I have always heard is that there is no one solution. Technology alone is not going to fix this problem. The law alone is not going to fix the problem. You know, vigilance alone may not fix the problem, because the moment that we hit the right degree of vigilance, there's some new scheme. It's all of it together that's needed. Self-regulation is a big part of it. The work that the Anti-Spyware Coalition is doing is very significant. Notice and consent are key in any self-regulatory scheme. We're also encouraged by the trusted download effort. The Direct Marketing Association has issued guidelines which, if actually complied with by their members, would make a big difference in the adware space. And we think at the FTC that a key place for us to keep our eye on is the adware space, because a lot of what's driving practices that affect either, you know, enterprise networks or individual consumers' computers comes up in the adware space. The keystroke logging, you know, identity theft, all that really, really bad stuff we care about. The FTC is also very involved in ID theft issues and privacy. But in terms of our mandate and our statutory authority, we're paying a lot of attention to the development of advertising in the online environment. It's a very fluid situation. There are models that have been tried and that have failed. And it's important that we get it right and not either kill legitimate advertising or allow, in the name of legitimate advertising, practices that are causing enormous harm. And that's a very tough line to draw and a tough balance to get right. Consumer education is another area of activity for us here. We launched this year the On Guard Online campaign. It is not branded to the FTC. It's a comprehensive campaign to educate computer users about a host of threats that they need to take action to guard against. And I can tell you more about it later if any of you are interested, but we have many nonprofit groups that have partnered with us to run this campaign, as well as industry groups. Anybody who has an audience can participate in deploying the materials for this campaign. It's an excellent campaign to help people know what they can do to protect their computers and their personally identifiable information. And finally, we're active on the international scene and are pushing particularly hard for some new statutory authority for the FTC to enable us to do our job better on the international scene because we're somewhat limited. You know, it sounds a little lame to sit up and say, well, there's only so much we can do, except it's the truth. We have to operate within the law, and we have to operate using the authority that the Congress has given us. And there are some key areas where we simply don't have authority. But in a nutshell, I've run through what it is that we are doing with the authority that we have, and happy to answer your questions.
Thanks. So we finished right at the time we were planned, which is unheard of for a panel that I've moderated in the past. Usually everyone goes over. But that's great, because then it leaves more time for discussion, for real discussion. I hope that you'll join us if you have questions. I'm going to start by asking a few of them. I'm going to take a little bit of a moderator's prerogative to respond to some of the things that were said here. One thing Dan said was no one's gone to jail. It's not 100% true that no one has gone to jail. In fact,
okay, yeah, some 21-year-old kid who doesn't have lawyers behind him and who clearly takes out a healthcare facility goes to jail. What is it? Direct revenue makes $100 million a year.
Well, direct revenue is being sued by the Attorney General of New York right now. So, and in fact, on the table we also have a report that CDT has done on the current enforcement actions. Some of them that are in progress, like the Attorney General Spitzer's case, and some of them that have been settled, like this Jameson James Anchetta's case. He was actually installing. What he was doing was he was running a botnet, and he was just installing, from what I could tell, and just installing Zango and 180 Solutions software over and over again, making money every time it was installed. And the quote here, which is one of my favorite all-time quotes. You got to read the discovery documents from these cases, because just all throughout these discovery, I mean, they're smoking guns like all throughout these. The people have still not seemed to learn that email is discoverable in these cases, and he set himself up here with it's immoral, but the money makes it right. Another case, one that Eileen's group brought, was you have another case like that with Sanford Wallace, who said, I found out a way to install an EXE without any action. There's a time to make money while we can. Obviously not extremely technically sophisticated, but significant enough to make over $4 million, according to the FTC, to do that. And again, in the discovery documents in that case too, I have one up here that I just pulled up while they were speaking. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. So you can see he basically says, he's talking about how, and again, he has guys that are working for him. This is his partner, Walt Rhines, who says the homepage thingy, including the homepage thingy as a DLL, so you will never lose them once you get them. I will pay for the banners, because earlier he says I'm paying 80 cents per 1,000 banners per 1,000 impressions, that I assume that means. And then he says, he glues to the SSH so that he makes sure that he doesn't crash. And then he's going to put all of his exploit stories at this website eventually called royalpainintheass.com. So I actually went to royalpainintheass.com. Not to take us too far off on a tangent here, but definitely relevant. Have you tried this, Eileen?
Yes.
Do you know where it takes you? See if it comes up. So I should also note while this is loading, it seems to be taking a little while.
Wait. Broken networking at a HackerCon? Oh, whatever.
Well, let's see what happens here. Oh, I shut down the other one, the other page. But his email address throughout this thing, and it's still his email address, from what I understand, is DJ Masterweb, and the royal pain in the ass eventually will resolve to OPM nightclub in Caesar's Palace. So he happens to be working here right now. In this building.
I'm looking around the room.
That's a
Aren't you?
Yeah. So and so that leads. I mean, that sort of leads to the question about. I guess there's. I don't know, Eileen, if you can talk about working with. I mean, here he's basically saying that he was holding users' computers hostage in the emails, et cetera. Working with the Department of Justice in these kind of cases, how that works. If you go in a little bit of detail about that, and also about finding these guys and getting money. Oh, here it comes. Getting money from them when you do get a case like this.
Well, we work closely with the Department of Justice and with the computer crimes group particularly, and there's not a lot more that I can really say publicly about that. But we do work closely. These are our colleagues. We all know each other well, and our offices are 2 blocks away from each other. So, and in fact, some of the people who work at computer crimes used to work at the FTC. So, it's a very close working relationship. Finding Gerhard. I was interested in Gerhard. Interested and always a little disheartened to hear people like Gerhard say that that finding the people who are behind some of the spyware activities is challenging and sometimes impossible. I would agree with that. At the same time, we've certainly found all of the defendants in the cases that we have brought. We have done the most thorough financial discovery and tracing that we can, and have gotten as much money as we have been able to locate back, where the legal theory is there to get the money back in the first place. There's some challenges with spyware in terms of what the law provides for in the way of financial remedies. The Federal Trade Commission Act gives the Federal Trade Commission the authority to go into court and the court to order redress to consumers. There you have to show that there is some claim or practice that the consumer relies on to their detriment that entitles the consumer ultimately to get their money back. That's sort of like fraud.
So
Okay.
when my friend's mother had to put her laptop in the closet for 6 months.
Right. Let me tell you, we have a lot of people who work at the FTC who've had to put their computers in the closet too, and we've had FTC computers that we've had to put in the closet. So this is you're right. I mean, there are computers everywhere. What I'm talking about here is what the law says and the remedies that are available under the law. One remedy is basically redress or restitution where there's reliance, as is the case where there's fraud. That's hardly ever what happens in a spyware case. So what we have to look at instead is the remedy of disgorgement of ill-gotten gain. That's a remedy, an equity